Hello, and welcome to Running the Table, the podcast where we run through everything on the table in the world of sports. And we're going to continue running through the divisions of Major League Baseball as this young Major League season gets underway. The next division we're going to is the home of Tim's very own Chicago Cubs, the NL Central. So, Tim, are you ready to get it going?
You know how I love my NL Central. Let's run it.
Speaking of those very same Chicago Cubs, Tim, they're your team. Let's hear your analysis. What do you got in your Cubbies?
Yeah, the Cubs are in a pretty interesting situation. They obviously had a pretty big down year last year of being well below 500, but they made, surprisingly, for those of you that are Cubs fans out there, you know what I'm talking about. The Cubs actually made some moves of significant consideration. And those moves have, for the most part, worked out decently thus far. They have, put up some decent
Granted, we're only like
performances.
10 games in, but
Yes, but I mean, here's the thing. That's in 10 games, you already see more things to be excited about with this Cubs team than you have over the last, couple of years.
yeah, and that's the point, and that's the point to make. Guys like
Yeah,
Dansby Swanson
he's
and
been on a
Michael
tear to start the
Fulmer,
season.
to name two of them that I'm really excited about that have been playing really well to start the season, it gives Cubs fans hope.
We haven't seen much out of Cody Bellinger thus far. I kind of predicted that. Wasn't a huge fan of that signing. Jameson Taillon has, he's been there. He hasn't necessarily been up or down based on expectations. He's been there. He exists. But that we have seen good things on the offensive side of the ball with contributions out of Dansby Swanson. We just signed Ian Happ and Nico Herner to extension, so you're actually starting to work for a little bit of a future for the Cubs. And Marcus Stroman has actually done quite well to start the year. So we'll see if he's able to keep that up. I can't say I'm too hopeful, given at least keeping up his performance consistently, because he has played very well thus far. But it's going to be a matter of keeping people healthy and seeing if we could get Kyle Hendricks back in the lineup and healthy. But let's just say, out of the guys that they lost versus the guys that they've gained, I would say that the Cubs are in the positive at the moment.
At the moment, I'd say that's an accurate description. I've never been a guy who's been too high on the Cubs. I think keeping up with the Cubs
I'm a very
side,
pessimistic Cubs fan. Just the fact that they've been winning some games to start the season is like,
well, I feel like you would be in the consensus minority around Cubs fans because they are like,
I've just
especially
seen
this
too much of
season,
it. I can't be that hopeful.
they're just unusually optimistic, which is what you want out of a fan base. But I see a team that's going to be around 500, maybe.
I would say their ceiling could be a little bit over 500, but this is not going to be like an 85-90 win team. It's not going to happen. They don't have the pitching staff to do it. They don't have the consistency to do it. So
no, and they also don't have the big boppers in the lineup to do it. Yeah. Dansby Swanson and Cody Bellinger are nice. Nico Horner hits for average. Yeah. Seiya Suzuki, he'll probably be better. But when you have a lineup consisting of guys like Tucker Barnhart, Eric Hosmer, Trey Mancini, that speaks of like bridge.
You got a lot of role guys, yeah.
Yeah. And their pitching depth, especially in the bullpen, horrendous. Awful.
If he exists.
Outside of Michael Fulmer, there are no Cubs relievers other than Edward Alzolay. He's been tearing it up. Those two guys, it's not great. So, I mean, keep staying the course, Cubbies. Just do your thing. Do your thing. You'll see maybe they can catch lightning in a bottle. It's possible. Am I counting on it? No. But that's enough about the Cubs. We got other teams to cover, like the Cincinnati Reds, who should be at the bottom of this division. They really don't have much going for them other than a very solid top end of the rotation with Nick Lodolo, Hunter Green, and Graham Ashcraft. And Edwin Diaz's younger brother, Alexis, has become the closer, and he's by far and away the Reds' best reliever. But there's not much else going on for them. Their lineup is kind of meh at best. Joey Votto's kind of playing out his twilight years, and there's really not much to expect with Cincinnati.
Yeah, they don't have a ton going on for them other than that pitching staff. They've lost a decent amount of what made them a relatively competitive team in the NL Central over the years. Obviously, you talk about Joey Votto seems like he's been there forever because he has. And you talk about playing out the twilight years. Other than that, they haven't really gained a ton in terms of things to be excited about, other than that starting pitching. And at the end of the day, they can pitch the lights out, but if they can't put runs on the board, they're not going to win a ton of games. So I really can't see that the Reds doing a whole lot this season.
Traveling north to Milwaukee, we look at the Brewers. And to me, the Brewers are a team whose championship window has closed. They're just kind of keep the ship afloat, try to rebound and turn the ship around to get that next iteration of competitive Brewers teams. But they're going to be right in the middle, maybe slightly above 500. I think with as stacked as the National League is going to be, I don't think they're going to catch a wild card berth or anything like that. But I think they do have the pieces to build around, such as that three-headed monster in the rotation of Corbin Burns, Brandon Woodruff, and Freddie Peralta. And then, of course, you have the ever-dangerous airbender, Devin Williams, closing it down in the ninth. You need your offense to get a little bit better. You need a few more pieces, and then they'll be ready. They're not there yet, though.
They've had a lot of competitive teams over the years, but they haven't been able to, hang on to enough guys to keep them as sort of that in that competitive window. They made a lot of moves in terms of guys that they got, and they also did lose a lot. And they've still got guys like Christian Yelich, of course, and that are going to still be good players for them, which is what, in my mind, keeps them pretty firmly above 500.
Dude, I miss MVP Yelich.
He was quite a player, but the problem is their consistency is there, but their ceiling is not, if you know what I mean, where it's like they're going to be that decent team, but their ceiling isn't, like high and away comparable to a lot of the other like top teams in the National League.
I think that's a pretty good way to put it. The next team we have is the Pittsburgh Pirates. They are supplementing their young guys with a lot of veterans. And by veterans, I mean veterans. You bring in Carlos Santana, Vince Velasquez, G-Man Choi, Connor Joe, Rich Hill, and you bring back Andrew
the man who
McCutchen.
keeps on pitching. Yes, and the homecoming.
The homecoming for Andrew McCutchen. Thank goodness they got Brian Reynolds on that contract extension because he was fantastic, and he still is fantastic, and he's going to be a cornerstone of that Pirates franchise. Same thing with O'Neal Cruz when he comes back from that ankle fracture. That was a freak accident. We'll hopefully he comes back healthier and better. Yeah, and they just need to stay the course, keep going, get more young talent, and kind of let the veterans fade away as you let that talent learn from those guys. Is it a sustainable system? Maybe, TBD. I hope Pittsburgh Pirates baseball can become fun again because it really hasn't been in the past few years.
Yeah, would I say that this is a sustainable system? No, but I think it's a transition system. So I think that their idea right now is to use the young talent they have, supplement it with all those veterans, and let them learn from those guys, get all that type of information, and just how to survive in this league. And then as those guys grow over these next couple of years, you have those veterans retire and move on, and you supplement that with guys from the draft or trades or signings, so you can build a roster that can compete at the highest level. But they do have, different pieces of talent in that roster that are pieces that are worth hanging on to going forward with guys like Brian Reynolds and O'Neal Cruz. The thing is they've kind of just got to coast through and, take in as much as they can from the time now and keep building for the future in these next couple of years.
The last team we have in the NL Central is the St. Louis Cardinals, who essentially won an NL Central title last year, made the playoffs, looked at the roster and said, hey, let's do it again.
Run it back.
With one minor tweak, snatching Wilson Contreras away from their rival Cubs, which that just sparks that Cubs-Cardinals rivalry even more. But if you look around the Cardinals, they have a team that will very much be in play for the NL Central title. In fact, if they stand alone at the top, if they just get together and figure it out, because you look at the corners, Paul Goldschmidt is your NL MVP. Nolan Arenado is one of the best third basemen in the game. Brendan Donovan can move all around, and that's not to mention the young guys like Nolan Gorman and Jordan Walker that have been fantastic to start the season. Their pitching is okay. It's not great. You sign Miles Michaelis to an extension. It hasn't really worked out so far in the few starts that he's had. We haven't seen Jack Flaherty be back to that ace that he was a few years ago. Jordan Montgomery, that was a pretty solid pickup in last year's trade deadline, dealing Harrison Bader to the Yankees, getting him in return. And that bullpen just kind of needs to stick together with Ryan Helsley and Giovanni Gallegos. The Cardinals just need to do what they know how to do, play really good, solid, fundamental baseball, just win the games they need to win, and then just get to the dance. Because once you get into the playoffs, especially in Major League Baseball, anything can happen.
If you look at the NL Central, like there really isn't too much of a reason why the St. Louis Cardinals wouldn't be, the favorites to win, and they should be. It's just a matter of, they've got most of the same guys, so there shouldn't be a whole lot of quote figuring it out. Because they run it back with pretty much most of the same roster, but it's just going to be, can they get what they are expecting out of each one of their guys? They still have, quite a bit of talent. Can they get Wilson Contreras to be, back to that all-star level, and batting well and playing well as a great fundamental catcher?
To be fair, though, Wilson Contreras is following an incredibly tough act. Being the guy that comes after Yadier Molina, it's not a responsibility that he should take lightly.
That you can possibly attempt to fill.
Yeah, and that's going to be tough. And that's a huge element that I think people don't realize, because although the roster is largely the same, that's a big piece.
It's the presence, the locker room presence. Yeah.
With Molina and Pujols that are now missing.
Hey, they still have ancient Adam Wainwright.
Oh, Wayno. But that's all we got for our NL Central season outlook. If you haven't seen the other season outlooks we've done, go watch those and the rest of the stuff on the channel. We have college basketball, NFL, and so much more. But if you want more from us, like and subscribe. And until next time, we out.